Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of Visual Studio Toolbox Live. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson, and today I am joined by Visual Studio extraordinaire, Mads Kristensen. Welcome,
Hello,
Mads.
everybody. Hello, Leslie.
Hello. So today we are excited to be talking about another episode specifically focused on the latest version of Visual Studio. So this is what's new in Visual Studio 17.3. Super exciting stuff. Took
Yeah,
a while. Oh,
there's a lot of really cool thing this time, and I'm also very excited to have this great cast of characters come and show some of those very cool things to all of you.
yeah, same. I think there's a lot of really cool major releases that happened in this particular version, which came out like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't updated your version of Visual Studio 2022 yet, do it. Do it now. Go to the update button in your Visual Studio installer and feel free to follow along with us and enjoy the show. So we're going to be showcasing a couple of the highlights in 17.3 with some fellow folks from the Visual Studio team. And yeah, anything else before we dive in, Mats?
I don't have anything. I think we should just get on with it and show all the cool stuff.
Let's do it. And if you have any questions about 17.3 or anything that we're going to present here, feel free to ask away in the chat. So first off, we're kicking things off with John Miller, who's going to be talking about the Teams toolkit that recently got added. Hi, John.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, Mads.
Hey.
Sweet.
Yeah, so sorry, I'll jump right in. In 17.3, release a Teams toolkit. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what that looks like and how we can do that. But I think it'll help for some folks if we just talk a little bit about Teams and kind of set up like what is Teams toolkit, what does building for Teams mean. So I have a couple slides just to go through that. So we start off with thinking about like what is Teams from our perspective. When we think about Teams, we think about it as a collaboration tool. And so these are kind of the four main pillars of what that looks like. So we have chat, meetings, collaboration across Office, and then also integrating with your business flows. And I think we can, I skipped a little bit ahead here. We go one more. So some idea of what those scenarios look like and how you might build for Teams. These are a couple different ways to think about it. How you can collaborate, you can share information inside of Teams, you can collect things inside of Teams like documents, you can start workflows directly from inside Teams, you could notify to keep your teams and other people in the loop on things, or you could just post information. So really it's about delivering things right in the context of work, so you don't have to switch. And this is already where people are working, so there's lots of different ways you can kind of integrate with that platform.
Awesome. Yeah, so how did it come about to decide to incorporate some of those team scenarios into Visual Studio?
Yeah, so I think the main way was we had to take a look at like what does the platform look like, and what can you do. And we wanted to do that as like coming from a .NET background myself, is thinking like, okay, I'm a .NET developer, so how can I build for Teams? And taking a look at this, you can see the Teams platform. There's a lot of different ways you can extend it. There's this concept of capabilities, and you see things like tabs and bots and meeting extensions. These are all different API surfaces within Teams that you can extend and experiences that you can build off of. And we have different UI constructs inside of Teams as well. So if you want to display something visually, there's some API services for that. And then these things we call entry points. So there's like chats, one-on-one messages, meetings, things like that. It can get a bit overwhelming and think like, okay, where do I start? What are these things? There's a lot of new terminology here, a lot of new concepts. What we wanted to do was think, okay, what can we do for developers to simplify that? And what does it look like from a .NET perspective? And let's start with the tools we already know and love, which is Visual Studio. So we'll talk a little bit about the Teams toolkit, but the idea that we started with was, okay, we have some good news, is we want to build something that makes it simpler. It's simple to learn, create, set up, change, test, and scale. And these are all things that Visual Studio does really well already for .NET developers. And so we created Teams Toolkit. So we kind of plugged into those 6 points. So you start with samples and project templates like you're familiar with, and then you can kind of run and debug with F5 just like you're already familiar with, test how you're familiar with, and scale to Azure as you would be familiar with. So the Teams Toolkit really includes kind of these 4 ways to look at it. We have a CLI tool. We have an extension for VS Code if you're a TypeScript or JavaScript developer and you want to work in the Node stack. Or we'll talk about the Visual Studio stack with working with .NET. And then we also have an SDK that makes it a little simpler for .NET developers to interact with this JavaScript world. So everything running inside of Teams is basically a type of web experience if you're doing something visual, or if you're going to extend it a different way, like with bots or things, you're basically creating an API. So we can use a lot of the .NET technologies that we're already familiar with. So I think when you're ready, I can jump in and just show you what that looks like. I think it might be more helpful for folks.
Yeah, let's do it. And I love the options. So people who like command line life can go do that option or go full on SDK.
Right. Yeah. It gives you some flexibility for things too if you want to do like CI/CD for some of these features and plug that into your kind of existing pipelines. Okay, so I have Visual Studio up here, and our extension runs in Visual Studio 2022. So once you add the Teams toolkit using the Visual Studio installer, it's an optional component with the ASP.NET workload. So you check a little box for Microsoft Teams developer tools, and then you basically get a new project template here called Microsoft Teams app. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that, and I'll just leave the defaults here. And part of this wizard gives you a couple application types that you can select. So these are templates that we've created that really focus on the outcome that you want to build. And these are based on things that we hear that developers typically start with in their businesses. So we have two ones here at the top focus on bot scenarios, basically notifications and commands. So these are popular application choices if you want to do something like I showed in the slides, where you want to inform or notify team members, or you want to kick off a workflow from Teams. So the notify part is the notification bot. And this is really just a little bit of abstraction over the concept of a bot to make it simpler to start, and same with command. Typically, these things can involve a lot of tedious setup, and the Teams toolkit aims to simplify that. So you don't have to jump through as many hoops or go through as many portals. It just gives you a way to start from Visual Studio with a project template, and the toolkit will help you configure all of that backend pieces. I have a couple options here for the notification bot. It's the one our team has enjoyed the most. We've built some notification bots. For example, our team has a bot that notifies me every day for issues that are getting stale. So if we have issues in Azure DevOps that need attention, we get a summary of those in a Teams private message to everybody on the team and says like, hey, you need to check on this issue, and we also get a full list with links to each of those items. So we use a notification bot for that.
Awesome. Quick question. Can you combine certain bot capabilities together? Like if you wanted a bot to both display notifications and also like display messages or have like command bots together, can you do that?
Yeah, you can. They're really the same thing. We just kind of start you off on a different foot, whichever way is more where you want to go. But you can, all of these things can be all of them. So you can start with a bot and add a tab or add a message extension, or start with a command and add notifications. You can do it all. Just like we try to give you an option here of like which direction you want to start with, especially if you're just learning. It might be easier to start with one of these and just get like something complete. And then as you learn the platform a little more, you start to discover like, okay, now I have a notification coming. Well, what happens if I want to like type in a command in chat and like, I don't know, start off some DevOps process, like, I don't know, kick off a build or restart a server, or some other thing you already have maybe existing in your business.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'll just choose the default option here, which is my notification I want to trigger with an HTTP call. And so the options we have here is you can create a typical ASP.NET Web API server project, or you can use Azure Functions. So I'm just going to use the default here for the Web API, and I'll let that go ahead and create. And what Visual Studio will do is basically the Teams toolkit will scaffold out a project for me that creates an ASP.NET Core Web API project. And then I will get my solution loaded here. And then we should have a lot that we're pretty familiar with. So the main piece here is this Teams bot piece, which is real simple. I'll just go ahead and remove this getting started file. Well, there's not much going on here, as you can see. It's really simple. We've abstracted everything, but the project's almost ready to go by default. And all we have to do now is make sure that our Teams app is registered in our Teams tenant. And the Teams toolkit helps you do this, so you don't really have to leave Visual Studio. The first thing I will do, though, is in order for this bot project to work, we have to create some kind of network tunnel, so that way the Azure bot service can communicate back with our project. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to use ngrok for this. And the getting started file kind of tells you to go through this. So right now we recommend that you download, install ngrok, run this command, set up the tunnel for yourself, and then we can go to the project menu, Teams Toolkit, and we can hit this prepare Teams app dependency command. This will let you select your M365 account for the tenant you want to do. I've set up an M365 developer program account, which you can access with this link. I'm already ready to go. I'll just hit continue. And then it's going to do all the automatic configuration that would normally be pretty tedious. It'll go ahead and register this with my tenant. I'm using a sandbox here, so I have all the permissions that I need to load this in my Teams app, and I don't have to deal with anything manually. So the Teams Toolkit will go ahead and do this for me. And then once this is complete, it didn't take too long, I'm ready to just press F5 or start debugging like I normally would. So I'll go ahead and do that, and it will launch Teams in a browser session for me and already log me in. If I've already logged in, it will try to log me in to that tenant. So I'm ready to run my app. So as soon as this is ready, we'll go ahead and launch the browser.
John, this looks like just an ASP.NET website project, and you are even debugging in the browser, and like it seems like a very familiar workflow for web developers.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build on, we're not trying to introduce too many new things here. There's already a lot to learn with the platform, so we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. So we're just reusing a lot of the .NET technologies you're already familiar with. So
yeah, it ain't broke.
Right. Let me go ahead and log in. It's asking me for my password here. Just give me 1 second, and then I'll share that. Same with the, if you choose the tab project, so earlier when we looked at the template options, we saw there was a tab. So the tab is a way to basically show a UI inside of a tab of a channel or a chat. For that template, we use the Blazor server application. So you can create all of your UI using Blazor components if you want. And we also have a .NET library. It's available on NuGet that gives you some wrappers around the Fluent UI components. So you can use their Blazor components that wrap the Fluent UI web components. And if you don't know what Fluent UI is, that's really our way of creating a consistent UI across M365. So you can more easily create an app that looks and feels like Teams. All right, so this is loaded, so I'll bring this over here. So here's my bot app. And if I go back over, so right now there's nothing in the chat. This is my app running. My bot's ready. You can see over here on the left, my little bot has been kind of pinned in this taskbar area of Teams.
Does it do that automatically, or like when you
it does
session?
Yeah. Yep. It'll add that automatically for me. And then if I go back over here, one way, I always forget this command, but in this little text file we include, we just give you a way to test this. So you can go ahead and just copy this, and I'll put it over here in a new PowerShell terminal on my other monitor. And basically, since this is, like I said, we set this up as an HTTP trigger. So I'll just send a post request to my locally running web API here. And if I go back over to my browser, as soon as this runs in PowerShell, then we'll see my notification. So there you go. There's my notification come in. This is what it looks like by default. So pretty basic. And all this is defined using what's called an adaptive card. So there's a lot of terminology here. So you kind of learn these things as you go. So this UI is all generated in our project here. If I go back over to the solution, we include this JSON file. This JSON file is kind of the declarative way to describe what this UI looks like using adaptive cards. You can see here, I have a little bit of syntax. Here's the schema for it. You can visit that to learn more. There's also an online designer where you can paste in this JSON and it'll show you like a live preview of it. And you can customize this to basically look like whatever you want. There's lots of templates on there as well to take a look at. So that's what we see over here. So you see I have my title, the app name, and just some sample message and a button. And you can imagine what we do in our team is we've customized this to basically show a list of Azure DevOps items with links and a button to open up the query in Azure DevOps so we can more easily triage the items and make sure we get a reminder. And that runs on an Azure function timer. So we've set the timer up to run every day. So we get a notification every morning with whatever we need to make sure we don't miss.
This is really exciting. This has me thinking. Like I've never thought about building something for Teams before. It's a brand new platform, and I'm wondering how can I integrate Visual Studio and Teams in new ways. Like that has me thinking. I like it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
me too. I'm kind of thinking about it from like a collaboration type deal when it comes to like writing and sharing out code or something. Like, yeah, like it's still very hazy in my brain, but the possibilities seem rather endless with this.
Yes.
So that's cool. And we got a question from chat related to this. So will this feature be ARM compatible, like for Visual Studio ARM?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. The tool, yeah, I mean, we'll support whatever versions of Visual Studio come out. So the idea is to continue building out. The first version we started with was 2019. That was kind of our preview step for this. And now we're focused on VS 2022 and beyond. So if you want to jump into the toolkit, download and install VS 2022 if you haven't. And we also participate a lot in the VS preview cycles as well. So we're working on some more features of this, and we also have the VS Code extension too, like I mentioned. That has some more features, like we've included the adaptive card designer directly in that experience. We were thinking about bringing the same type of thing to VS. We have plans to add more scenarios, like we showed notification bot, command bot, and tabs. There's more templates that we're working on. The more we learn from developers what they're building, we include some more getting started options there to make that simpler. One thing I didn't show is in Visual Studio also we have some more options in the Teams Toolkit menu. So if we go to the Teams Toolkit, we have these provision and deploy features. So the toolkit takes an infrastructure as a code approach. So we, let's see where it's in this templates folder, in this Azure folder. We kind of give you a default opinion on how you can host these things in the cloud. Since all of Teams experiences need to be a hosted experience, they need to run in the cloud somewhere. So by default, we give you some bicep templates, which are for Azure. And so we configure all this stuff here. And so you can commit it to your repo. You can go through a CI/CD process if you want. But from Visual Studio, right now, we give you some menu options to basically do a couple clicks, and this thing could be running in Azure. So you can provision and deploy using Teams Toolkit and using these bicep files, which you don't have to be familiar with this, and you don't have to use it either. If you already have an opinion on where you'd like to host this somewhere else, you can do that however you want. We just give you kind of a bundle right from the default and document that, so that way you have a good place to start.
Yeah, so you could use Terraform, for instance, if you want to be cloud agnostic and don't want to go with Bicep, and that doesn't change anything else with your project, right?
Right. Yeah. You're not beholden to using this. This is an optional piece. You could just delete this if you wanted and replace it with whatever you want. It's just a way for you to do it. And something we're doing in the toolkit as well is we're looking at, what does it look like for you to have existing infrastructure that you want to deploy these things to? How do you integrate that? And we're building in new features for the toolkit to adopt that as well, including things like Terraform support kind of by default. So we recognize that a lot of developers may already have infrastructure they want, or they may not have permissions to even do these things. They may not be able to provision things with the accounts they have access to. They might be given bicep files and things like that. So we're building those type of features directly into the toolkit as well.
I like it. Might there also be opportunity for people in the community to create their own templates, like in order to share with each other?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's not something we've really discussed, but one cool thing about this project is it's open source on GitHub. So it's github.com/officedev/teamsfx. And in that repo, if there's folks that are interested in that type of functionality, submit an issue and start a discussion with us. We have lots of the team on there. And that's the cool thing about, it being open source is we can have a discussion about what it is. We have our roadmap posted there. So happy to explore that.
Cool. Well, John, thank you so much. And you shared a link that I'm trying to pull out real quick for people to go try out the toolkit. Awesome. Yep. Go to that link. I'm sure it's got all the docs that you need to get started, right?
Yeah, that takes you to the Microsoft Docs site for the Teams Toolkit piece for VS. Like I said, we have two extensions, VS Code and VS. This will take you to the VS part. So if you're a .NET developer, this is a good place to start. It'll walk you through how to get started. There's installation docs there, screenshots, everything you need to learn to get up to speed. And you don't have to learn the whole Teams platform right away. Like that slide I shared earlier can be kind of scary. There's lots of different entry points and extensibility options. You can start with the toolkit. You have 4 options, based on where you want to start. Just play with it. Set up an M365 developer account. It's free. You'll have all the permissions you need. It's a sandbox Teams environment all set up for you, ready to work with the toolkit. There you can tinker and play around. You can add demo users if you want. And then when you're ready to take it somewhere else, then we have documentation to help you get there.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. And this is really cool to see. So I'm looking forward to see what kind of crazy apps get get created to be incorporated within Teams from Visual Studio.
Me too. Yeah, let us know. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, John.
All right. So next up, we're going to pivot over to C++ land and see some of the new developments happening over there. So bringing in David Lee from the C++ team. Hi, David.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be back.
Yeah, nice to have you back. You've been around many times. So
yeah,
come on.
There's quite a lot of new things in C++ land in 17.3. Going on with our theme of faster performance, every single minor version of Visual Studio and VS 2022 has been focused on performance. And for 17.3, that is still the same. There's 2 major performance improvements that we're showcasing in 17.3. One is population, and the other is time to colorization, as well as some new, small, but very powerful productivity features designed to save you time. So let's get into it. Let's see how fast the Visual Studio will get for C++. So first, we did some benchmarking on the Chromium repo. Chromium repo has hundreds and thousands of lines, and there's such a huge project. As you can see here in 16.11, this took minutes, right? The measurements are in seconds. So we've been working to reduce the time it takes on your initial startup to index your code base. Now in 17.3, this has been reduced to 6 minutes for the Chromium repo, a speed up of almost 4 times. Next, as you know, we really love our game developers. We used Unreal Engine 5 as a benchmark to test our population improvements. And here, as you can see from Visual Studio 2019 to 17.3, Unreal Engine 5 takes almost twice as fast to index. So now, for all of you large code base developers, this is good news for you.
This is impressive. Really, really impressive.
Yeah, just the drastic jump. That's pretty cool.
So, David, how does the developer feel this difference? Is it about like how soon after the solution load that they can start coding, or how does it impact them?
Yeah, this will give you a quicker time to start coding. So in addition to index improvements, we also have time to colorization. So this is time to colorization, similar to index, is when you click open a file for the first time and the time it takes for your code to colorize. So you will feel faster, not only when you're starting Visual Studio Code, if it's a project that you have worked on before, for indexing, time colorization, you will feel a very, very big difference from Visual Studio 2019. From the responsiveness to the time it gets your code to get colored. So it's fast, very fast now. But you know what? We're not done yet. So stay tuned. The team is working hard to look in other areas of performance improvements for C++ developers like you.
So you say this is a time to colorization for a cold start. What about a warm start? Any difference
Warm
there?
Start has also been improved in 17.2, and I believe 17.1. So this is we're benchmarking both code and warm scenarios. But I think for 17.3, it was the code time declaration that the team focused on.
So what exactly is a warm start? Is that when all the indexes and all this sort of stuff has already been created on disk from previous times working on that repo, or how do you classify?
Yeah, exactly right. So a warm is you have opened a project before, or if you have your IntelliSense, your IntelliSense engine has run. So all the ready sign on the bottom left corner, blinking, when it stops, that's the first pass, right? So anything after that will be warm. Code is, if you never open the file for the first time, that would be a code scenario.
Okay, yeah. So in the warm scenario, it kind of just reads those indexes that are already been created, just has to like read them back into memory or into, something instead of creating them. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cool. So, yeah, I gotta say, for me, it's such a pet peeve when the colorization doesn't immediately pop up. I'm like, oh my god, hurry up! I just want to look over my code real quick. Yeah, so that's cool to see. And we got some comments in chat. So one person's excited about these massive gains. So this is more than double, right, in terms of an increase in performance across the board.
Exactly. Our community has been loud and clear. I have received many comments on Twitter through our surveys about how you, the game developers, or whether you are working on large code bases, just in C++ land, perf is definitely something that our developers are very, very focused on. So, making things faster to get you to code as fast as we can.
Is there a difference between if you're using CMake style projects or the traditional MS Build style projects?
This is for all C++.
Okay. Nice.
Another question from chat: do these performance improvements apply to Visual Studio for Mac?
Unfortunately, it does not. These improvements are only for Visual Studio.
For Windows.
Yeah. And another follow-up question, now related to ARM: will all of this be applicable in the ARM version of Visual Studio?
I believe so. Everything, I think in ARM64, all of the features that we are making in Visual Studio 2022 will also be available.
That's fantastic.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the theme for all of this. Like,
yeah.
Jose is asking this for all the different features, and I think like they're all going to work in ARM64 the same way.
Yeah. They may not all work at the same time, but the end game is to incorporate all of the stuff that exists outside of the ARM64 version into ARM64 VS.
So now moving away from perf, this time we have quite a few productivity features actually were requested by our game developer community. So something that has been in Visual Studio for a little while, that was available in 17.2, was the C++ inline parameter named hints. As you can see in this little screenshot of a Unreal Engine project, instead of just showing what your parameters are, it gives you a hint of what the function is expecting. So, you see targeting character, targeting actor. This is just to give you an idea. So you don't have to, constantly go to definition, look at a function signature, and then have to remember, wow, like this function has 6 inputs, like which are which, right? This design is save you time without having to jump back and forth between the definitions, so you can, code faster. And to enable this, all you have to do is go to Tools, Options, Text Editor, C++, IntelliSense, and enable the inline hints. There's quite a few options there, so please do take the time and see. For example, the default hotkey for this is Alt F1, but you can also use double control as a alternative hotkey.
I didn't know that. Does that work for the other languages that support inline hints? The double control?
I am not sure, actually.
Okay, that's a
Should
great
make it compatible if it's not already. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And two other productivity features are, the first one is autocomplete for enum types. I'll show both of these features in a demo in just a sec, but to enable these, once again, you go to your Tools, Options, Text Editor, and forgive me, I forgot to write C++ in between Text Editor and Experimental, but all of these features are under the C++ options. So you go there to Experimental or IntelliSense and enable these features. So without further ado, let's dive into the demo.
Also, comment in chat. I can be lazy now and stop using name parameters because of the inline hints.
Exactly. Exactly. So first up, we have, we're showcasing the autocomplete for enum types. Here we have a enum, my enum, with a bunch of names, A, AA, B, and C. Here we have another enum that it's not supposed to show up. So if we see just this in our suggestions, that's not good, right? But the main thing is my enum. So there are several instances where you can get member list to suggest enums. So first is the return statements. So as you're coding along, you can bring up the member list, and only your enums, all of these, will show up. Before, we did not enable this feature, so you could not see, you couldn't autocomplete enums. So this is the case for a return statement. Over here, you can select another one. And why not here? Let's just return this part of the enum. So aside from return statements, it will also show up in assignment operations. So in a t.a, if we're going to assign it to something, you see here, the options here are, once again, mine enum. All the members of the mine enums. Select one and move along. Another scenario is case. So if you want to do a switch, you can pick any of these. There's also comparison. Now, with autocomplete for enums, you might run across a situation where, hey, I'm doing comparison. Maybe I just want to compare it to a number or integer or maybe some other variable in my code. Instead of seeing only enum results, all you have to do is show more results. You could click this little plus button. As you see on the screen, it is currently showing only context aware. So once you click this plus, you have the whole member list to choose from. So you can compare to something. Lastly, it's also for parameters. So let's say your function takes in an enum as a parameter. Oops. And you want to bring up the member list. Once again, it will let you complete your enum. So that's autocomplete for enums. this is derived from requested by one of our game developer, our friendly studio, our friends at id Software. We know there's a lot of enums in game development. So, if there's a quicker way for you to complete your code, we're happy to make that productivity feature for you. So
Very
next,
cool.
This one is go to definition after a signature change. It is a very small but also powerful productivity feature in 17.3. So let's say you are coding along and, okay, maybe my bouncy ball, I don't want this anymore and I want to change this. So instead of the bouncy ball, what if I do a bouncy square? Now, without this new productivity feature, if you were to F12 or go to definition, let me show you what happens when this is turned off. So once again, it's text editor, C++, IntelliSense, and you check this box. So if with that feature turned off, if you change the name or even anything else, you press F12, nothing happens because Visual Studio doesn't know where the original signature was. However, with this turned on, you can now go to your header and then see your signature. So now if you navigate between the files, the function names are different. The Visual Studio can still know how to navigate to your signature definition or declaration after you change something. So if I change back to the ball, instead of the 2 coordinates, I also want, why don't we do a color too, right? So now in ball with an H, we don't have anything matching, but now you just press F12 and you'll get to your signature.
Sweet.
So that's it for the demos.
I like it. I especially love the end line hints. That's my personal favorite. It's nice to just have that quick reference.
Oh yeah.
I know not everyone's jazzed about it, so maybe some food for thought. Also from a comment in chat, having a quick and easy way to toggle it quickly. So I'm assuming maybe something outside the tools options.
You can definitely toggle it on or off with Alt F1, and also the double control if you check that box.
Cool. Also from chat, they're giving you the code for the bouncy ball function in case you want to add that in later.
That's awesome.
Hi, physics fans. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, please try out VS 2022 if you haven't already. I know some of our game developer friends are still using VS 2019. Just letting you know, you can upgrade the IDE without upgrading your tool set. So everything's binary compatible. You can try out all the fast features that VS 2022 is providing without having to upgrade your tool sets.
Good stuff. And then I just posted the link below, which can get you access to all of the perf-related C++ content. Is that correct?
Exactly. Please go to that blog. There's more details about how the benchmark was performed. Just a little bit more information if you like to read more.
Cool stuff. Well, thanks, David. Looking forward to the next C++ update, because I'm sure this is not the last time we will see you on the show.
Yep. Next time, hopefully I'll bring even more faster news.
Good to know.
Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Mads.
All right. So C++, pretty awesome. Teams Toolkit, pretty awesome. Now let's go over to one of my personal favorites and talk about some debugging updates. So to do that, we're now joined by Harshada from the debugging team. Hey, Harshada. And oh, it looks like you're muted, so you might want to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me
There
now?
you go.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes.
Perfect. So thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Matt. So as Leslie mentioned, debugging is my favorite area too. And we have been actually making a lot of new changes and improvements, and specifically in debugger visualization area. So we already have a lot of visualizers which are supported in Visual Studio, like text visualizer, JSON, and dataset visualizer. But what we were missing was a visualizer which can help analyze the complex collection objects like lists and arrays. And that's why we added an enumerable visualizer in 17.2. And one special thing which we did with that particular release, that we also added a survey along with the release. So whenever the users use the visualizer, they were prompted with an optional survey. And we asked the users about their feedback. And we also asked the users about what new improvements they wanted to see in this particular area. And we received overwhelming response on that, more than 280 responses. And then we had lots of comments and suggestions about enumerable visualizer in general. And that actually helped us build our roadmap for the improvements which we wanted to do in this area. So with that survey result help and with our research, we actually have a bunch of new improvements which we brought in this area in 17.3. And that's what I'm going to show you guys or demo quickly around what new features you have in the enumerable visualizer. So if you can see on the screen, I think firstly, if you don't know already, you can actually launch the enumerable visualizer in two ways. You can just hover over. So I have this fake list, which I created just for the demo. You can actually just hover over the object name, and then you see this tooltip, which can also give you an access to the available visualizer. In this case, it's an enumerable. Or you can just go over to your autos window and then click it, and that will bring up the enumerable visualizer, where you can easily analyze the data for your object. So first thing which you can see, which is different, is this nicely themed window here, which was the super requested feature from our users to theme this particular pop-up. So unfortunately, we still have a lot of windows in the debugging area and in general Visual Studio, which are not completely supported in the dark theme. But we made this particular window as a first window in the debugger visualizer area, which will be themed for the dark blue and light. And we will be bringing this theming support for all the other windows which are applicable in the debugging area. So as you can see, you can easily reset the size to whatever you prefer. And then with this data, I have around roughly 24,000 rows here. I can sort the data based, I can just click on the title of the column, and then it will sort the data for me in the ascending or a descending view, and you will see the sorted data here. I can use this filter to search filter any keyword I want, and that will filter this whole data in the visualizer and will just show the filter, show the rows which contain the filter keyword. And then finally, I can use this export button here to export in the CSV or an Excel format. I can also just Control-A, Control-C anywhere I want it. So as I mentioned before, we will be bringing not just the theming, but all these other features to other visualizers as well. So we have a consistent experience in all the debugging visualization area. I think that's all I had. It was a pretty quick demo. I don't know if there are any comments and questions in the chat.
There is kind of, well, I have one inspired
Yeah, sure.
by one of the comments. Like, what languages is supported with this? Because you're showing us C#.
Yes.
Right?
So right now it will be supported with C#, like this particular enumerable visualizer. It unfortunately will not be supported in C++, but we are working a lot. There is a lot of work which we have on our roadmap for this visualizer. So C++ will be on the roadmap, but not in a very near future. But that's on the track.
So is it all .NET languages like Visual Basic and F# as well, or is it C#?
I believe so. It should. I think it should be.
all of .NET.
I'm just excited to see this in the wild.
Yes,
finally.
I know. This was a very long due. Leslie knows this. I think Leslie, you started on this for very
Yeah.
long and made it to.
Yep. I was still on the debugging team at the time that we like started work for this, and then I got put on hold for a long time, and then all of a sudden, in like last year, I think it finally got introduced. I was
In
like,
17 too, we launched this.
yeah. And I remember because Mads and we did a mini demo of this in our build session. And I remember like one of the most recurring pieces of feedback from folks was just how cool this window is.
Yeah, I personally call this feature as the most loved feature of 17.0, at least in the debugger area, because as we mentioned it, we released in 17.2, and we still receive a lot of feedback on this, positive feedback and some suggestions as well. But like, yeah, that's like my personal favorite too.
Awesome. And of course, the common question of the day: will it be ARM compatible?
I believe so.
Yes.
It should be.
It should be, definitely.
Yes.
I'm almost 100% sure that it's gonna be there. It's like I think the theme going forward for the ARM question is I think we'll tell you when it's not. I think that's easier because by default the developers like everything we do so Visual Studio is written in primarily in .NET and WPF and that stack, and so everything we do, as long as it's using those technologies, will also work on ARM. And so it's like things now by default also will work on ARM, if that makes sense. So it's only if we're doing something that requires, let's say, Windows or Win32 APIs or something that it won't be, but there might be some specific native code for some C++ projects or something. I'm just guessing here, actually. But in general, everything we do in the Windows side will work on ARM.
Yep.
Yep.
And also, before we end this part of the chapter, does the window evaluate the IEnumerable each time or just once? I'm assuming like every time you
I think it's every time whenever you launch the IEnumerable visualizer through that pop-up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't tried out, do try it and please let us know your feedback.
Yep. And I know you sent me.
Yeah, I sent you two.
Here we go.
Yeah.
It's a bit long, but yeah, if you Google IEnumerable visualizer Visual Studio, it'll pop up.
Take a screenshot, run the screenshot through an OCR algorithm, and then you get your string. You can paste it into the browser.
Oh, sounds good.
I didn't even think of that. That's kind of cool.
Thanks, Matt.
Sweet. I learned something new today about screenshots. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Harshada. That is awesome. Short and sweet demo, but really cool tool.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
See ya. All right. And last but not least, you've written your code, whether it's with C++ or you wrote an application with the Teams toolkit, and then you debugged it. And now it's time to use good old Git to do the collaboration thing. And specifically, we're going to be talking about line staging. And we've got James from the GitHub integration team who's going to be talking about that. Hey, James.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So we're pretty happy to announce the release of line staging support for Visual Studio 2022. Our Visual Studio is in preview, but this is the same as 17.3. Line staging or interactive staging lets you split your changes across multiple lines across different commits. You can also use it to review commits. So I'm going to give you a quick demo here. But when we think about how line staging fits into the core loop in general for Visual Studio, we think about people making changes to writing code, and then it's time to publish that code or share it with their team in some way. And in that scenario, line staging lets you craft commits in a way that is easy to communicate with your team. So normally you can stage multiple files, but it's just a file. And this lets you break it down per line. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this MAUI app back to some previous commit, just so we have some realistic code to look at. And you can see we've added a lot of files and whatnot. What you can do is, let's say we're modifying this README here in here. You can see as soon as you open this diff up from the Git Changes window, you can see that you're offered to stage these lines. So let's say you wanted one commit that just adds like this comment here. We can stage just that line here. without staging this website, and then we can craft a commit about like updating the README with notes. And then we could also go in and let's say we want to adjust this README too. Maybe we needed to separate this change out too with that change. Oh, this is a complete add. And then we can go ahead and commit those stages. We can also go ahead and see that this interops with other Git clients. So this is just a Git GUI that comes with Git for Windows. And if we refresh this, you can see in the stage changes that this is seen here too. So any Git client will immediately recognize these changes as being staged, which is pretty neat. So yeah, you can go ahead and stage different lines. You may also, if we make some changes in preview here, let's say we decide there needs to be spaces on all of these. And of course, if we show the white space here, then you can see we could stage just these changes instead of the whole line by selecting things. You could also go ahead and undo changes with the undo whole change button. And you can also line stage in inline mode or other modes too. So if you switch your diff over, you can now stage your changes in this mode. Or I guess if you want to stage from just the left side or the right side, you can also do that. So lots of ways to interact with this main feature. With this change too, we also came with the Git details margin on the left here. So if we add a new line here, you can see this is now reflected based upon Git. This used to reflect just in-memory changes. But if we go ahead and close this README, or even if we closed the whole file, you would still be able to see those changes on that file. So if I go ahead and close these differences and then reopen this README here, you can see this. Additionally, another feature that we have is you can go ahead and open this margin up and preview this change in live, and then you can also go ahead and just live edit this too. And then line stage directly from here if you needed to stage just a line or whatever. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what line stage is using. It's a really great tool to let you craft commits in a readable way when you don't really have all those changes figured out immediately. When you're going back to go through that publish step, this is a way to publish those to your team in a readable way.
This is cool.
Yeah.
And this was a long time user request too, right?
Yeah, I think there were 150 votes or something in the feature request forums, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, we still have a little bit more to go. We need to finish implementing unstage, which if you open up this Git changes window and from here, you should be able to unstage these changes. For now, you can just unstage the whole file and it'll just live update the update. But yeah, that'll be coming soon. And overall, the big feature is just splitting those into multiple commits.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, it's crazy how in just the span of 2-3 years, we've gone from no Git integration in VS or very little to full-blown individual line staging, which is pretty cool. And I mean, you're tempting people to turn back on the Git integration features if they toggle them off for whatever reason because of features like this. So that is really exciting.
That's a good review right there.
Yeah. add-i can be a bit clunky, especially if you're doing it in your terminal. So another follow-up question is, is it possible to toggle the line staging buttons? Sometimes gets in the way when trying to interact with the text.
Yeah, this is a really good question. RPMs have been tracking this one for a while. I think, at least my understanding of the user research that we did was if we had them in other places, it was a little confusing. But as you can see, especially if I zoom in here, these kind of get in the way of reading the text. So I think we're evaluating different ways to try and get these out of the way. So there's no quick toggle right now. That's a good piece of feedback. And we always want more feedback on the feedback forums too. So definitely great if you can submit that. But that's something we're tracking for sure. So
awesome. And yeah, people want to learn more. There was a recent blog post that went out about Git line staging. So definitely go check that out as well. And anything else, James?
No, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I love hearing about what's new in the Git integration space. So cool stuff. Alrighty. And then that concludes our episode on what's new in 17.3. Obviously, we didn't cover every feature under the sun. Like there's still other ones like you can like put your tabs in multiple rows now.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, that one's really awesome. As somebody who like tabs open all the time. Yeah, so that's great. And a bunch of other ones. I think like Azure container app integration recently happened there too. So if you want to learn about all of the 17.3 features, make sure you go check out the related release notes, the blog post that went out on 17.3 that I linked in the chat earlier. So scroll up a little bit and just download or hit the update button on Visual Studio 2022 if you haven't already, and just go explore and see what new things you can find. Seriously.
It's it doesn't take long. I do it every day. We get internal builds. I do it every day. It takes around 5 minutes. So go ahead, push that button. You're going to enjoy it.
Absolutely. And share your feedback. We all had our Twitter handles attached during this. So if you need to rewind because you want to follow up with one of us about one of the related features that you're trying out to share your feedback, you're welcome to do that. And you can also go to the developer community where actual people read those. Just a heads up. So everyone who presented their awesome features today, and myself and Mads, we all look at those pieces of feedback that go through that site. So it's not just a robot. Just letting you know. All right. And with that, thank y'all so much. Hit that update button. And until next time, happy coding.